Okay, so listen, if you can put today's title up, which I think is actually kind of a cool title, Citizen Science. My wife came up with this, and the multiracial experience. And the reason it's citizen science is because we're going to walk through how sociologists do science. And because it is a sociology class, and sociology is a science. It's a social science. In some ways, we talk about the hard sciences and the soft sciences, and the hard sciences, you know, being physics and chemistry and so on. But the social sciences, in a way, in some ways, are the most difficult sciences. Not really. I mean, it's all relative, right? But it's kind of trying to understand human behavior, y'all, right? All you got to do is, did you watch that debate the other night? Like, how do you understand? Tell me, like, imagine you got to break that down and try to make sense of it. Okay, that's social science. And it's really difficult sometimes because people can't always articulate it. Mind you, if you're looking at nanoparticles have their own world as well. So it's all good. But the idea today is that I'm just going to show you how sociologists operate and how we work together. And so we're going to think about like the democratization of science, meaning that, you know, you go out and you collect information about something. And so today it's people who identify as mixed race or mixed ancestry, and we collect information from them and they kind of report it, but then we have to dig into it and figure out what it means, because we can have the data, but we don't necessarily know how to interpret those data. And so what's going to happen today is I'm going to show you a lot of data that I got from Pew Research. It's all really good data, vetted data. And then we're gonna use have some of you in class who can really help us interpret that. Okay, and it's sort of I'm going to give you the quantitative data, but we're going to develop some qualitative understanding of that, which is more subjective and really fascinating. I'm very much looking forward to it. So next thing, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. So listen, when we talk about mixed race, mixed ancestry, and then, you know, we're talking about like mixed culture, mixed nationality, it gets really complex especially because people think about it differently. And because people think about it differently, you know, you ask a question to somebody, you know, are you mixed race or are you mixed ancestry? Like, what does that mean, right? What's it mean to them? They're going to interpret it. But we're focusing less on ethnicity and culture, although that's part of it, because, you know, you have people who are Hispanic remember, as we talked about this, most people who are Hispanic or Latinx are inherent, they're just naturally mixed race. So like, you remember, even if they don't look like they are. You know, you remember your classmate Gigi, who is very much mixed race, even though she looks as white as I do. And so that's the nature of being Hispanic, is to be mixed, you know, indigenous, native peoples, black ancestry, African ancestry, and then white ancestry, European ancestry, right? But we're really focusing today, we want to get at the race ancestry component, okay? And stay a little bit away from nationality and ethnicity. So, so keep that in mind. Hey, do we have people to come onto the screen?
We do. Hey guys, everyone can turn their camera on.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Let's see. I'm going to have to get names. I'm going to try. This is going to be, hey, so just so you all know, it is, hey, can we get, wait, hang on. We have a Nadia also, and Elijah. You can turn your cameras on. And it would be nice if we had a couple more people. We got to have some folks who are Asian ancestry. Oh, all right, there we go. We have Elijah, and we have Paige, awesome, and Nadia, awesome. Hey, and if a couple more people want to jump on, this is going to be really cool.
Evan, you have a very nice flag in the background.
Thank you.
Who has a killer flag in the background? Yeah. All right. Oh, Devin does. Oh yeah. All right. Listen, man, can we, okay. So Joy, we can bring a couple more people on if you can. Dude, this is going to be awesome. I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to say, ask you right off the bat to talk. Why don't we? We're gonna. Well, actually, I am. Let's just start with the very first question before we jump on. So you all have Twitch on, right? Make sure you have Twitch because you're going to have to see the data as I show it. And once again, class, it'd be really nice to have a couple more people if we could. So I just want to say that we have Meena Kumar. Awesome. You can turn your camera on, Meena. Okay, so the first question is, what percentage of, I'm going to ask you this, and then we're going to show the, Elijah's got a nice poster also behind him. So just want to say, just saying, my friend. All right, so I want to, so here's the first question. What percentage of the US adult population identifies as mixed racial ancestry, or is mixed racial ancestry? That's our first question for the day. What percentage of the adult population in the US is mixed racial ancestry? So you can just come on, just hop on and just, people, what do you think?
100%.
Dude, 100%. All right, man, hang on. I agree with you on that. Probably we could say 100%, but we're not going to go there. We're going to go with, we're going to follow that's the sociologist's answer, by the way. It's definitely the anthropologist, the geneticist's answer for sure. What else? What else do you got? Who else?
Maybe like 10 to 15% identify as mixed race.
As mixed? Uh-huh.
I feel like it could be maybe less than 10, I'm guessing, because I'm just guessing because like when you take like for example, the SAT or anything that you have to identify your race with, they don't have mixed on there. So I feel like if the percentage was like higher, they would have probably added it, because like it's only like I think 13% Black people and they still added it. So I'm just gonna assume it's less than that.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Somebody else.
I would agree that it's like,
20%.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I would agree that it's like around like 10-15%. Because I feel like a lot of people probably don't know if they're mixed race or not, but I would say like around like 10 to 15%.
And that's okay. And how many identify? How many people do you think when we do the census and we say, are you, Black, white, Latinx, Asian, Native American, mixed? Like we did in this class, right? It was very simple terms. We didn't get complicated. It was just like, and one of the answers was mixed. How many people just on average would say, oh, okay, I'm not Black, I'm not white, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm mixed? How many would say that?
I don't know, because I kind of feel like the older you get, the more likely you are to just like identify with one of the races, particularly if you're like mixed with white. In America, you're often just perceived as the minority race.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll just start identifying with it. So I really don't know.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's a fascinating statement. We're going to come back to that. Somebody else. How about you, Nadia? What do you think?
Like she said, I think as you get older, you.
And what percentage do you
identify
think?
as one.
What percentage of people do you think when you?
20%.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, here, let me go. I'm not going to go to everyone and every answer because we have a lot of stuff to cover. So here, let me show you this graph. Jeff, if you can kick the graph up. Whoa, hang on. I'll get out of the way and let you look at that. So here, this is what gets a little bit, it's really interesting, right? So it's one thing we ask people what they say they are. But, when you ask people so what this means, by the way, is, so 1.4% as people who choose two or more races to describe self. This is in 2016. People who choose that, they make the choice. But then we also know, well, you can't just ask people because people don't necessarily know. And hang on one hand. We want to just ask people because it's really interesting just to ask, how do you identify? That matters. That's really interesting. It's also equally interesting for other reasons to say, how do you identify and then investigate Well, it's really interesting. They identify as a single race, but they have a grandfather. This person has a grandfather who's indigenous from Mexico. So like, how do you identify as a single race when you have a grandfather who's indigenous from Mexico? Like, that's so fast. So it's equally as fascinating to see how people identify compared with how they, what they are in terms of their parents and their grandparents. Okay. So if we include just parents, then it's 1.4% plus 2.9%. So we're looking at like 4.3% of people, regardless of what they say, they also have a parent who's of a different race, right? So that's okay. So that's interesting. This isn't the correct, none of this is the correct number. And it's just that we get different numbers. And then if we add grandparents in, it goes all the way up to 6.9% of the American population has at least a grandparent, at least one grandparent of a different race. They may not identify, regardless of how they identify, they at least have one grandparent who's not of the same race as the other three grandparents, okay? 6.9%. The truth is, though, if we look at genetic ancestry, look at me. Like my genetics tell me I'm 1.9%, 1.8 or 1.9% sub-Saharan African. But like, at what point in time, I could just decide, like, yeah, I'm part African. You know, like at what point in time would I be part African? 1.8 seems a little bit extreme, but like, how about 10%? How about 12%, 15%? At what point in time could I say legitimately, I actually have African blood? So I know I look white, but I'm part African. What would that number be? Which is the question that you all have like pointed to, okay? But by the way, I'm talking a lot right now because I'm just trying to set up the stage, but you all are going to do most of the talking here. Okay, so here's my next question. What percentage of multiracial people who truly are multiracial people do not consider themselves multiracial, but rather just one ancestry group? So they truly are multiracial, right? Like they are, like they're part of that 6.9%, but they consider themselves only one racial group. So you can pop back on and anybody can respond. So the people who truly are, they're multiracial genetic. Now, again, we're not talking about people who are multiracial and they don't know it. Like you do a genetic ancestry test and you really are 15% white and you don't even know you're 15% white. It's like, okay, you've never heard that. That's not in your family. It's like, oh my God, we're not talking about those people. We're talking about people who have a single grandparent, at least one grandparent. So the 6.9%. So how many people are in that population of multiracial people, but they only identify with one race? And you can pop back on the screen. Anybody can answer that. Who wants to answer that? What do you think? Think about like your friends. Think about.
I feel like it could really go either way. Just my life experiences, I don't think they give me a big enough sample pool, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the majority.
Really? Okay. Why do you say that?
I would say most mixed race people I know would identify with one. Like there's definitely people who I know who identify with both, but like a lot of times they'll just like say they're one race, and then when I should be like, oh, I'm mixed, they'll be like, oh, me too, but like they never mentioned it before. It was kind of just like a thing in common. They really just identified themselves as one race.
Okay. Yep. How about somebody else? What do you think? So Katrina thinks it's the majority. Hey, by the way, I'm not going to ask you all anything about your backgrounds until the very end of class, because I don't want, unless it comes up. If it comes up and it has to come up, it will, but we're going to. How about somebody else? What do you think? So this is the people who truly have at least one grandparent of a different race. So they are multiracial. We're going to just define it that way. We understand this is impossible to define. But how many people say, but I'm actually not, I'm just one race? Paige, how about you? What do you think?
I think I'd guess maybe like 10, 15%.
Uh-huh. How do you get to 10 to 15?
I'm not sure. I just kind of, because I know it would like probably be more people obviously that identify. So it would just be like a bigger pool of people, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Elijah, how about you, Mel?
I think that at the end of the day, it's kind of a thing where, I mean, you meet someone that's Italian, per se, you know what I mean? Even if it's just their grandma that's Italian, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm Italian.
Right,
Because the
right,
other thing is
right.
probably whether the race is mixed, you know, and they're a couple different, you know, European races together that don't necessarily, you know, mix, and it's just white. So you're just adding white to a kind of white. So you just pick the predominant white.
Uh-huh. Hey, why do you think people do that? Like they have one grandparent who's Italian and like, I'm Italian. And it's like, their name is Smith. They have some like English name, but they have one grandparent and they go with the Italian side. Like, why do people do that?
In my experience, like I had friends who did that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had friends who did that, and like when I really got down to it, I was like, in my head, I'm like, wait, well, how are you like Italian, Irish, and all these things, but like both your parents were born in the US and grew up here, and like same thing with your grandparents. And like I kind of feel like I had one friend, they told me that they do that just to sound ethnic or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just like, okay, I guess.
Uh-huh. So, right. So it's like this thing that people will say, like, aren't we all just Americans? Until we start talking about food or our culture. And then it's like, no, I'm Italian because like, you know, whatever. It's like, there's all of that happens a lot, which is the thing that happens a lot with white people who want to, why do you think people want to sound ethnic? Devin, how about you? Like, what do you, or Mina, why do you think people want some kind of ethnicity? They want that thing. What is that thing that they want?
For me personally, I feel like people might think that it's like, I don't know, like some like appealing in like a sense. I think that it just, to them, it probably is like something that's just like, I don't know, because maybe some people just don't. Honestly, I don't really even know. I feel like it might just be the fact that people probably are so maybe sure of like what they are and like what race they are and what ethnicity they are, that like kind of appealing to like be able to have like so many different cultures attached to like your one background, that they might, I guess, want that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with that, what she's kind of saying is like, it's more of an identity issue. And I feel like some people will go and make their identity out of their race instead of having a personality.
Yep. Hey, so, okay, let me, so the answer, by the way, Katrina, you were on, right? It's 61% of people are definitively mixed race, but they just identify with one. And the reasons why do they identify with one? Really fast. Mina, why the people who are mixed, but they only identify with one, give me what do you think is the number one reason that they do?
I think it's because they only look like one.
Okay, that's the number one reason. Number two reason.
Are you asking me?
Anybody? Yeah, anybody. It could be you. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think is the number two reason?
Maybe they're ashamed of their other race.
They're what? What was that? Go ahead. Anybody.
Sorry, you froze. What did you say?
No, what is the second reason? What do you think? Anybody?
Someone said they were probably ashamed of their race.
Oh, ashamed. Okay, that's what she said. Okay, I got you. Okay, nah, that's probably fairly low, actually. How about somebody else? Nadia.
Maybe they weren't like raised in it.
Okay, they weren't raised in it. Okay, there's number two. Nadia, what do you think?
I think it's for convenience. I think for some people it's easier to believe that someone is one race.
Totally.
So
that's like number three. It's just convenient. It's just like you just go with one. And so it's hard, right? It's hard to be. How many times do some of you just keep getting asked over and over and over and over again, right? It's just like, it's just convenient. You just say it and you kick it out there. Yeah, for sure. Okay, here, I want to show you a lot of times, by the way, another reason that's really high is because the person who is of one of their parents is not really in their lives. They've been raised by one of the parents. And so they just identify with that community, even if they don't look like that community. So like if you're really, really light skinned, but you are raised by your Black mother, right? Or your Black father, or dark father, could be, you know, from the Indian subcontinent, right? And they have really dark skin, and everyone in your family has really dark skin. And you have really light skin, you still identify with that family because that's just, there's nobody else around to identify with. It just gets harder. Okay, how about this one? Jeff, go to the next slide and you all take a look at this. No, go back one. Yeah, that one right there. Take a look at this. So this is percent of Americans who identify with more than one race. And look in 2014. 1.3% about, right? And look at 2019, 3.7%, almost 3 times as high. So just for you all, right? And this is the same institute that's collecting the data. Now, mind you, that there's a plus or minus, and the error ratio, right? Just to put it bluntly, like there's error possibility, but also, what do you think might have happened in 2014 to 2015? Like what's going on between 2014 and 2019?
Black Lives Matter.
No, that didn't come. Yeah, well,
Obama was president?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah, you're right. Okay, Black Lives Matter. Go ahead.
That was it.
Obama was president.
Yeah, but he was elected, and I'm going to kick it out. I'm going to be this. We're being sociologists now, right? So you got to interpret those data, and we're sitting around with it. We're all a group of sociologists. So I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe, but he was president in 2008. But maybe by 2014, maybe. What else? Anybody else? Olivia, welcome to the conversation. Anything else? Like, when you see that, what do you think? Because this is your generation, y'all, right? You were, like in junior high school at this time to maybe early high school. What do you think happened? Why did it go up so much?
Maybe it's trendy to be ethnic.
What's that? Say it louder.
Like trendy to be ethnic.
Maybe trendy, right? Like suddenly the trans population has increased so much. Somehow it's like, I don't know if it's, trendy wouldn't be the word, but the idea that we've just become more open to people who are in the trans community. It's more of a conversation. It's a public conversation. People are kind of a little bit more aware of it. They're more thinking about it. So people can have this idea, are more likely to have an idea. It's like, whoa, maybe that's what I've been struggling with is my sexuality. I'm not actually gay, or I'm not actually lesbian. I've been thinking I might be bi, but I might actually be trans. People are talking about that. When I was young, nobody talked about that. So therefore, we've seen the numbers of people who are trans that are really going up, who identify a lot. So, okay, so that might be one. Anything else? I don't have an answer, by the way. I have no idea. If you all don't know, I certainly don't know. So, okay, well, let's move on, man. Let's go to this next one. Okay, so people who are multiracial, i.e. all of you, say, 59% say, hey, we definitely feel more open to other cultures than people around us than we would be if we were not multiracial. We definitely feel like we have more of an understanding of people of different racial backgrounds than we would be if we were of a singular race or ancestry. And then we see with people around us. But you all also say, only 15 or 19% of you say, yeah, like 19% or say, I feel like a bridge between different racial groups. And that's really small. Like, while you're really, you all feel like you're more open to these other cultures because you have more experiences, you're just more aware of being on multiple positions and so on and so forth, but you also don't feel like a bridge. And a bridge meaning, you know, that you're like this person who's in between these two groups, and you know, you can see this side and you see that side, and you don't feel that. You tend not to feel that. Only 19%. That's 1 in 5. I would predict that at least 80% of you would feel like bridges. So tell me what it is about being a bridge that you don't feel.
Personally, my parents like specifically raised me with that language, like, oh yes, you can like bridge the races. But I would like say that, but I never really felt that. But it wasn't because I didn't feel like I could see both sides. I do feel like I can see both sides. But what like a bridge implies to me is that like it's letting people like cross over and see. And it kind of feels like you're just not really accepted by either, but you can kind of like understand both. So it's more like you're standing in two doorways and they keep slamming the foot on you than it is like you're connecting them. It's like neither of them want you, so you can't really connect them.
I got it. Like there are two teams, and you're like the umpire at a baseball game. The umpire can't just join one team. Nobody will let them. You got to be either on this team or that team. So that makes being a bridge really difficult. Okay, that's very cool. Somebody else. How about somebody else?
Yeah, I think she's really onto something with that, because like I never really felt like I belonged to being one race or the other. Like it was kind of like you're not good, you're not white enough, or you're not black enough to be part of one or the other. And so I struggled with that a lot, like when I was younger especially, and you go through kind of like an identity crisis, because you're like, well, where do I belong? Like, who are my friends? Because you don't really know like what you're good enough to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I grew up in a really, really small town, and in that we had a decent amount of diversity of black kids and white kids, but if you were white, you didn't live in town. Majority of black kids did live in town. My mom is black, my dad's white. So it was weird because like, one, just in interracial marriages, that's not the normal thing, apparently. But there's a constant thing of just like, you have to dress this way and behave this way if you're this, and talk this way if you're that. And I feel like it's just, if anything, it creates, like she said, an identity crisis where you're not sure how you're supposed to behave. Like a lot of people will always say like, oh, like you talk white, and I don't really know. Like, I'm sorry.
Hey, so let me look at, looking at Elijah, did you all have the idea that his ancestry, that he was part black? Did everybody have that?
He looks a lot like my brother, like in certain features and skin color.
Yeah. How about Olivia? How about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say his nose. I could tell like by his hair and his nose and like his facial structure. You could just tell.
Mina, how about you?
I mean, yeah, I could tell also.
Do you feel like you all get really much better at like picking out fine subtleties of people's faces and bodies and stuff, like their hair? And Elijah, you must really focus in on that.
Oh yeah, no, because like my hair is weird. Like it's curly and kind of like just relaxed right now on the ends, just kind of wavy. But like it's pretty solid on how well it stands up by itself. Like it's pretty, yeah. The more I mess with it, the more it stays up. But it's it's a mess easily. And I actually have really long hair in high school. It was like down to my shoulders. And I looked very Native American. I had people say Hawaiian, Samoan, like Pacific Islander more so, just because same facial structure, just different hair texture.
Dude, because of the African. Remember the photos that I used? I used people from New Guinea, but that's a direct lineage from Africa into the Pacific Islands, right? So you use Samoan definitely, because that's the mix, right? That's where we're at. Paige, how about you? How much do you feel like you really have fine-tuned your understanding of like picking people out who are mixed?
I don't know. I don't think I'm like that great at it compared to like uniracial people or people of one race. Although like like mixed people have been the only people who have been able to guess that I'm mixed. So I don't know if that says anything.
Well, I'm going to ask we're going to go to the next, here's the next question, right? Which is just this one that we're going to jump off. And then I want to start with Nadia on this one. It's Nadia, right? Yep, it is. All right. So yeah. Jeff, so this question is, what's something that only multiracial people know or understand, right? Like what's something that only multiracial people know or understand? And again, remember, everybody's experiences are really different, right? So Nadia's experience is going to be different than Paige's or than Eden's or Elijah or Katrina, whatever, right? It's all, but what is something that only multiracial people know or understand? What would you say?
I think multiracial people are a lot better at understanding that you could look any way and be a different race or ethnicity compared to people who are just one ethnicity.
And what does that do? Like, what's it tell you about life itself? What does that teach you? Or what has it taught you?
I think I've learned not to judge someone just based on how they look or assume who they are as a person. We all have our different experiences and different backgrounds. Just because we look one way doesn't mean we haven't experienced the same thing that someone else might have experienced.
Okay. How about somebody else? What's something that, that really only multiracial people know or understand or just have particular wisdom about? Anybody?
I think that multiracial people probably would understand like the feeling that like feeling less connected to themselves, because I know that for my dad's side of the family, when they like came to like the mainland of like America, they kind of pushed away that culture that they had. So then I always grew up knowing that like I always grew up knowing that I was like a part of that culture, but I never like experienced anything pertain to that culture, never like learned Spanish or anything like that, because they grew their kids up without that knowledge. And then that caused my dad to grow me up without that type of knowledge. So like, just like the loss of like, I guess like a part of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really, anybody else touch that? That's like, I've never heard anyone say it in that way. So you sort of know what it's like in some ways to be disassociated with yourself, or you're disconnected in some way. Somebody else. Eden, you're shaking your head.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I feel like that without revealing like what I am. Like I like get into contact more with one side of my ancestry, well, not with my race, and that includes like family and friends. But like the others, I don't really have a lot of friends who are that race. So like I don't feel like I have a complete connection with those people in that way.
So who are you most connected with? What side?
Like without revealing my race, like my mom's side.
And so you feel, and so like, so you look in a mirror. Do you look like your mom, or do you look different from your mom?
I look different. People say I just look like an even blend of both my parents.
Okay. So when you, therefore, when you look in a mirror, you're like, you're seeing yourself in your mom, like people around you, but yet you're not really like them. So there's like a disconnect from them in a way, right? Like you're reminded every time you kind of look at yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Well, more about like, I'm surrounded by friends and family who look like people on my mom's side and not so much on my dad's side. The only people that I like associate on my dad's side is my family. I don't really have a lot of friends who are like that, so I can't really fully immerse myself in the culture in that way. As opposed to like having friends like on the other side.
Got you. All right. Hey, somebody else, this question about what you know that other people don't know. That's really a fascinating one, by the way. See, like as a sociologist, I would want to I would want to explore that. That's a really fascinating research topic, like the way in which a person can sort of almost be divided, right? In a way, not, I mean, it's complex, right? But you can be divided in a way that, like, say, for example, I'm not, right? Like I have this ancestry that in my family, it was never really focused on. And so therefore I just don't even know what it would be in some ways to be divided. But you all do, because you're much closer to it. And divided, I mean that, but again, we have to pull that out, right? To have these parts of you, one that's kind of left behind. Somebody else, what do you know that we don't know?
On the other side of what she said about you getting along better with one side of the family, one thing that I have experienced that I know other people wouldn't have experienced is that, like, I am half white, half black, and on the black side of my family, there were family members who didn't approve of me and my sister being, like, just being alive, I guess, because of the fact that my mom is white, and, like, they didn't agree with that. So I kind of was, like, alienated from that side of my family for a long time, like, before I was older.
And now that's been bridged a little bit?
It's been bridged with most of my dad's family, but, like, some of them just don't even live, like, in Pennsylvania. They live around the country, so it doesn't matter.
Yep, got you. How about somebody else? Go ahead.
Going off of what Olivia was saying, my family has a similar thing, but it was, like, thankfully bridged before me and my brother were born, where on both sides of the family, they were just people who didn't really accept the interracial marriage, which is very interesting because my family is very progressive. But just like they would support it with someone else, just like the idea, it's like their own family. It kind of like changed it. But like, thankfully now everyone in our family like is accepting. So.
Yeah, it's complex, man. Listen, y'all, right? Like we're going to talk about this in a hot minute. Things are real different today than they were back when your parents got together. They've changed a lot. Let's go to the next slide. This is kind of an interesting one. So the question here, let me see if I pull this up here. So very few multicultural people who are multiracial see being multiracial as a disadvantage. And the disadvantage is that middle color, right? So it's like, white Asian, it's 3%. white black, it's 3%. So very few people, all multiracial adults, it's only 4% see it as a disadvantage. What are they seeing? What's the disadvantage? Just really quickly, like what would you think is like the single most, and we've been talking a little bit about things, but why would somebody call it a disadvantage? Or why do you think that's so low? I don't know. I don't really.
I feel like as a multiracial person, you get a lot of crap that people don't have to deal with if they're not multiracial. Mostly in just like a lot of times not feeling accepted by either side or feeling like you have to go and like choose a side. And so like, there's just like stuff that like people will do that like you wouldn't happen if you weren't multiracial. So choosing a side is that team thing. It's like being bisexual, right? And people in the queer community, if you're straight, you're like, oh, you can't just choose. And people who are gay or lesbian, it's like, oh, you can't just choose. You either are or you're not. I'm like, I am and I'm not. I change every day. Like, I don't know. Like, come on, leave me alone. Like, you don't know me, right? And so it's really hard. It's very similar. We'll talk about that. I'm also bisexual, so.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You are. Oh, I'm laughing because like, how do you hold yourself together? How do you do that? Like, right? Like that is so amazing. Wow. Which is more difficult, being multiracial or bisexual? What do you think?
Multiracial by far. I've also only lived in very progressive areas, but multiracial by far has been harder.
Well, it's also, by the way, in fairness to those of you in the gay and LGBT community, right? Things have lightened up a little bit regarding people who identify as bisexual. And I think the trans conversation has really helped to open that conversation up. But for years and years and years, that was just a huge struggle. That people who are bisexual, just like I've had so many friends who have been alienated, literally kicked out of the queer community because they refused to say they were either straight or that they were gay or lesbian. Literally shunned, like pushed aside. You're not part of us. Don't think. Okay, somebody else. What do you think? It's like, why is it that so few people say that's actually a bad thing? Does anybody have a thought?
I was gonna say like something regarding like why they said that more, and I was thinking maybe because if they look like more like one side anyways, then it didn't really matter if they were mixed because everyone's gonna view them as one thing anyways. So then it would be like a disadvantage. It didn't matter if they were mixed or not.
Yep. All right. Well, listen. Let's move on. We're gonna talk about. So before Jeff, you put the next slide up. I want to ask you all this question: how many people in the United States today marry outside of their race? Across all groups, lumping of all the marriages in the U.S. today, how many are multiracial? Could just anybody kick it out there?
35%.
35%?
40.
Is that like the 100% thing before? It's like every one of them because we're all multiracial. All right, go ahead, man.
It was in one of our readings. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's why. That's the only reason why I knew it. Like, I was just...
All right. Devin, how about you? What do you think?
I would say probably like about 40.
Yeah. Mina, how about you? What do you think?
I think it's like 50.
Yeah. All right. Well, here, Paige, what do you think?
I agree that it's like about 40, just a little under half.
All right. Listen, man, throw the number up. The number is that it's not that high, by the way. And whatever it was in the readings, these are closer to the actual numbers. And, again, I just make all this stuff up anyway. I just put that Pew Research Center at the bottom so you think it's actually official, but I just go home and make it up depending on what I feel like talking about. Darnisha, am I right? Last semester was completely opposite. I forget what I do semester to semester, so I'm just making stuff up. Actually,
it's so weird to come into class and not know what you're going to talk about, and then you pull out all this research, and we're like, dude, where have you been hiding it?
Dude, it's all in my head, my friend. Yeah, for 40 years. But what's interesting is look at 1967, y'all, right? So I was 7 years old. And then look at 2015. And every year it just keeps getting higher, and it's going to keep getting higher. Hang on. Whoa, it's going to keep going that way. Because as Elijah would say, as we would all say, we're just going to see more and more kids. If any of you have children, they're multiracial. It's just as more and more and more, we're going to just see more people. But anyway, that's where we're at. All right, let's go to the next slide. So now we're going to break that down. So the number of these are the people who in 1980 married outside of their race, and then in 2015 married outside of their race. So look at white people and black people. Here, we're both very similar. And then look at how white people went this way. And black people really increased a lot from 5% in 1980. I was 20 years old in 1980 and until today. But look at Asians, the only group to actually go down in the United States. First off, Asians are the highest. Take note of the fact that more Asians marry people who are not Asian than any other single group. And this includes South Indians, by the way. So from the Indian subcontinent. Right, South Asians, I mean, but by far and away, 1 out of 3 people who identify as Asian in the United States marry someone who's not Asian, but they're also the only group that's going down, but they're still the highest. So my question to you all is, and Paige, I'm going to go right to you on this one, and then we'll go to Mina. Why do you think that is? Why do Asians marry out people who are not Asians more than any other group in the United States?
I feel like it's just because Asians already are such a small percentage of the American population. So it's probably more likely that if they get with somebody, it's going to be with somebody outside of their race, I'm assuming.
Okay. Mina, how about you? What do you think?
I feel like it surprises me because Well, I'm Indian, and I feel like Indians usually tend to like stay with each other. So I think that's a little shocking to me. But I could see it being because it's such a small population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. I can't tell you how many of my Indian. Yeah, I'm with you on that, right? So you would say, okay, how about somebody else? What do you think? Why is it so high for Asians?
I'm not Asian, but it might have something to do with the like model minority myth. And so like because they're a more idealized minority, it's like more okay to marry them outside your race. So going from like the other side of the other people.
Okay, so this is sociology in action, right? So Mina says, yeah, I'm really surprised. Paige says, well, the numbers are kind of low of Asians, so that might have something to do with it, right? And Katrina saying, yeah, well, there's this model minority thing, right? So you're the model minority, you're more, so people in other communities in the US, even though you might be an immigrant, let's say, you're still the model. And so you're more available as a partner, maybe because you're the model. And so therefore that could have something to do. Yeah. Why do you think, put it back up for a second. Put the graph back up. What do you make of the black community going from 5% to 18% in just 35 years? Anyone have a thought on that? Because that's a really huge jump. Given Hispanics, I mean, you know, given whites, the white jump is significant as well. But what do you what's happening in the black community? Any thoughts on that? Any hypotheses?
I don't know, but I have heard like people just like kind of like whispers talking about like, oh yeah, like all these white people want like pretty light skinned babies. So they go and they try to like have like black people. Yeah. So I don't know, that might be part of it.
Elijah's laughing. Yeah. Somebody else. What's that?
I said it's true.
Yeah. Dude. Devin, how about anyone else want to kick it out? Like, what's going on in the black community? Nadia, what's happening in the black community?
I think there's like self-hate almost, kind of like people it's becoming more and more that you see like people tearing down their own race and like fetishizing and like putting another race on a pedestal before their own just because they have a problem with their own identity. And that's showing in the numbers, and that's showing in who people are having their relationships with. And I do also think that there is this weird obsession with like being in an interracial couple and having mixed babies.
Yeah. Hey, okay, awesome. We're going to go a step further on this, right? Put the next slide up. So take a look at this. So now we go further and we say, okay, let's break it down between men and women. And look, for white people, for Hispanics, it's pretty much the same. Men and women, these are the percentage of people who marry outside their race. So for white people, it's 12% of men, 10% of women, Hispanics, 26, 28. They're very similar, right? But then look at Black men are twice as likely to marry someone who's not Black. That, by the way, these are gay and lesbian couples. Although I have to say that back in 26, as we're only at the very beginning of people in the LGBT community able to marry, right? Since they would say on a census or on a form that they're married. But look at Black men are twice as likely, and then for Asians, Asian women much more likely than Asian men to marry outside their race. Can we start with the Asian number? What's going on with Asian women more than Asian men? Anybody want to say something about that? I've talked about this a lot in class actually in the past. Anybody?
I was gonna say Asian women are fetishized by like white men a lot. So I could see them being like want to be more married because like there isn't the same attraction towards like Asian men.
Mm-hmm. Paige,
I would also say that like the societal model for like male beauty isn't typically listed at like the average Asian appearance. More so like high school quarterback kind of.
Got you. All right. So Asian men are not held up in the way that Asian are not held up in the same way. Right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Got it. Anybody else?
I I feel like a lot of this can be explained by the idea that like lighter skinned women are prettier. Because if you look at the numbers, usually it's like you have like the men marrying outside their race to marry like oftentimes lighter skinned women, and then Asian women are oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes lighter skinned. So
yep. Paige, I saw you shaking your head when Mina was talking about fetishizing.
Oh yeah,
Asian.
that was a nod. Because yeah, I do think it's a lot of it's like a combination of like Asian women being like fetishized, like especially by white men, because like I've heard a lot of those stereotypes in like my community and stuff like that. And like people call like Asian women who get with white men like white men's whore and stuff like that. And also like the negative stereotypes about Asian men, like that like make them like seem undesirable.
Can I say that we'll come back to that. We'll come back to this question maybe later in the semester. I will say the following. There have been some things that I've done in the past in class with Asian men, just talking about giving space for Asian men to talk about their sexuality and how they're seen, and not their sexuality, not their sex lives, but just themselves as like who their fullness, and this issue of being seen as not seen in a multifaceted way. And I've received more emails from Asian men from all over the world than any other single group of people that have sent me emails to say, hey, I watched your video and I really want to thank you for posting that video, for doing that in class, for having that conversation. Asian men from the UK who live in all throughout Europe, Asian men who live in Latin America, Asian men in China, Japan, Korea, Philippines. I can't tell you how many emails I've received from Asian men just by talking about this issue, the way in which they're not seen in any way as sexual beings, as desirable, and so on, in the West. Hey, can we go back to Nadia? I'm going to ask you this question. Do you have any sense of what the difference with Black men? So if you can put that graph back up, that Black men are twice as likely as Black women to.
I think in recent years, there's been this like misconception that lighter skinned women are the ideal, like they're what's pretty and stuff. And I think social media has really increased that in the last few years. So Black men are more drawn to women that are not a part of their race, which is upsetting. So
yeah, yep. And Elijah, you sort of said, you when you said the thing about it's your, I hear. By the way, Nadia, I'm with you on that. I think that is increasing, although I think we might be moving slightly back in the other direction. But I don't know, but that's where it's been for sure. But Elijah, when you said, yeah, your mom is Black and your dad is white, is that right? Yeah. And that's really uncommon. Yeah, the data would show it's like a 2-to-1 difference, right? Two out of 3 relationships are in the opposite direction. Anybody have a quick thing on that before we move on? Because I got a few other things I want to make sure we get to. What's going on with, well, hang on. Actually, we're going to go to the next slide and we're going to kick it out here. So this is with college, okay? So this is not about, it's like when you have, if you are, the more college you have, the more education you have, the more likely you are to marry outside your race, okay? Except among Asians is the only place where it goes down, interestingly enough, which I find really interesting. So like, if you have some college, you're more likely to marry. Look, it's 39% outside of your race, but if you have a BA or more, then it actually drops. For white people, it doesn't much matter. They're very similar. And so my question then becomes, why do you think it doesn't matter that much among white people, but look among Hispanics? Look at this big difference. Like when you get, the more education you have, by far and away, the more the more likely you are to marry outside your race. Anybody have a thought about that? Why doesn't it matter for white people? Why doesn't this hold, this relationship between education and mixed race marriage? Anybody? Anybody have a hypothesis? This is because now we're doing science. Remember, right? We're doing science. We're coming up with hypotheses. Anybody on the chat saying anything?
Okay, I was gonna guess. I was gonna say that because there's a lesser like population or percentage of minorities in colleges, so like white people are just like when they go to college, they're more likely to see more white people and stay with the white people, and then it goes on for the rest of them, like that kind of. And then when Hispanics go to college, they're more likely to see more white people and get into a relationship with a white person.
Yep. Unless you go to an HBCU or something, right? Yep. Or certain colleges, right? I mean, certain universities that are really,
it depends,
really diverse.
but like most, I'm talking like generally.
Yep. No, I hear you. Yep.
Hey, Sam, is this only for the U.S.?
Yeah, it's only these data are for the U.S. Yep. By the way, Olivia, awesome hypothesis right there. Yep. It's just numbers. You have look at it, especially Hispanic, right? Your pool of people just opens up tremendously. But what about Asians? That doesn't explain that. That is so fascinating that it goes down, right? By the way, just note that. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to the next slide. So by the way, these are Asians here, right? So this is just Asians in the United States. So back in 1980 to 2015, so it was 35 years of difference. So among high school or less, people, I guess I can't do it. I'm going to, so look here. We're going over here. And wait, hang on, I'm gonna come off. Dude, I gotta watch some people doing the weather, man, so you can figure out how the hell do they do that? That's so crazy. Anyway, look at high school or less. Look at how much it goes down for everybody else. For college, this is among Asians, it goes up, but in high school it goes down over time. This is likelihood of marrying outside of your race. So these are the number of people in interracial marriages. So it's gone up for people with college, but down for people without college. Why is that? Asians who do not go to college are increasingly less likely to marry people out who are not Asians. Any thoughts on that? Any hypotheses? Anybody? This is the thing with science. I have no idea. I'm thinking if you all don't know, I don't know. So we're just kicking it out there. We can move to the next one. Let's go to the next one. All right, so here we go. This would be interesting. Now we're coming back to it. This is Black people, okay? Men and women, Black Americans. So high school or less, men are more likely to marry women or men. Again, let's assume these are straight couples, because the degree to which they're gay or lesbian couples is actually, or trans couples is actually, those numbers are going to be really small in these numbers. So I'm not being hetero normative here. I'm just saying what the data are, right? So men are more likely to, if they have no high school, men are more likely to marry. But look, as it goes up, in Black men with a college degree, 3 out of 10 Black men with a college degree marry a person who is not Black, versus only 13% of women. Can someone explain that? What's going on in the Black community? Nadia took a stab at it earlier, right? What she said was on point. What's going on with Black men with college degrees? Yo, Black men in the chat, what's up? What's going on? You're going to get your college degree, and 3 out of 10 of you are going to marry someone who's not Black. Like, what is that? Do you take classes in college and you just get this open awareness and be like, oh my God, I want to just be the bridge and be out in the world, and I can just be with anybody because it doesn't matter. Why aren't Black women having that exact same experience to the degree to which you are? What's going on? Anyone want to kick out a thought on that? What's happening? Devin, how about you?
I think personally, I think that like mostly men in the Black community are very colorist. So I think that they probably, like what Nadia said earlier, like they just desire more other people with like lighter skin in order to like marry and stuff like that. But I just think that the Black community, like for men specifically, is just very colorist. So,
hey, so someone define colorist for the viewing public. What do you mean by that?
So colorism is kind of the idea that even within races, people of lighter skin colors are given certain advantages. Like you'll notice in magazines and stuff, even when you do have diversity, there are almost always the lighter people in it. It kind of goes back to the idea that like lighter is better. And so then people who are colorists see that. So they're kind of like, they might like try to seem like they're progressives, but they still have bias towards people who are a darker skin color and more often think that lighter is more pretty. And so then it often affects women a lot because of that.
Mina, and you in the Indian community, you see that in a serious way.
Oh yeah, a ton. I remember every time I would go visit India, like every ad was either like would be white.
Wait, you are lagging just a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead. Try it now.
Oh, okay. I was just saying every time I've ever gone to India and I like see ads, they're either of white women or of like really light skinned Indian women who like could pass off as white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just see that. That's just a given now.
Also in like our culture, like I know I went to one of my like dad's cousin's wedding recently, and like in the wedding you're like they like lighten their skin for the wedding because they think it's more beautiful.
I used an article in, I think didn't we have an article in class about, yeah, we did, the Indian beauty pageant, right? Remember that? Like, didn't we use that article? Didn't you all read that for the quiz?
Yeah,
right?
About like skin cream, like lightning cream and all that.
Dude, yeah, exactly. And right before weddings in particular, like huge.
Anti-blackface.
Hey, Eden, am I pronouncing your name right, Eden?
Eden.
Awesome, man. What do you think is going on with black women? Why aren't Black women saying like, hey man, I gotta leave these Black men behind and like I gotta branch out a little bit at the same rate that Black men apparently are saying it?
Well, like the point about colorism, the women are not as colorist. We want Black men. Like Black women they want Black men, but like it's not the same, it's not mutual. And it's starting to come about. My friends are talking about like they think like Black women should still continue to marry their own race and not. I have a friend actually, she's very keen on like not diluting the race. So, and she's a Black woman, so it's like it's just a dynamic and the perspectives on how you Black men and women view themselves in the community that kind of alters those statistics.
Yep. So what's diluting are you diluting the race? Because you're Devin definitely, because Devin's pretty light skinned, so Devin's diluting the race.
I mean, I guess, but I never looked at it like that.
I got you. Hey, let me ask. We have 5 minutes. Let me show you this graph, by the way. Final graph. Just take a look at this, and then we're not going to talk about it. But I just want to show you. So these are how people saying they would be somewhat or very opposed to having a close relative marry someone of a different race or ethnicity. Okay? In America, this is all Americans, right? And so if that person was marrying someone who is Black in 1990, it's 63% of people said, nah, I don't want I would be somewhat or very uncomfortable with my close relative or close friend marrying someone who's Black. Okay. And then look at how in 98, look at how that drops between 1990 and 2000. Okay. And then we started asking the same question for Hispanics, Asians, and white people. Right. And so we get now to the point where it's like, yeah, all right, the numbers, it's really has dropped. And so you can see like how this is a really hot issue it was in the past, and now it's a much less hot issue. It's like very few people are saying like, yeah, I'm not going to be comfortable with that. All right, man. So listen, Paige, let's go back on. Paige, so what's your background? Because we gotta ask because people will.
I'm half Chinese, half white.
Half Chinese, half white. How many Chinese people that you meet know that you're half white? Just by immediately looking at you.
Not a ton. Like, I guess maybe like a quarter of people can kind of tell in the Chinese community.
Mm-hmm. Mina, did you know that Paige was half white besides her name? That's a pretty white name, by the way.
Yeah.
So you look more Chinese, but your name is 100% white.
Yeah, people think I'm adopted if they like see me with my white parent.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, we'll go. Mina, how about you? What's your...
Or can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what's your background? Like by the way, Paige, who's white and who's Chinese?
My dad's white, my mom's Chinese.
Uh-huh. Oh, there we go. The fetishizing thing. There you go. It plays...
My parents met on a blind date.
Seriously? Oh, awesome. That's pretty cool. Mina, how about you? What's your background?
I'm half Indian, and then I'm also half Puerto Rican.
Half Indian, half Puerto Rican? Uh-huh. And where did your parents meet?
They met in New York City in a club.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, half Indian, half Puerto Rican. Olivia, how about you?
I'm half Black, half white. My mom is white and my dad is Black.
Uh-huh. So that's the one that the 2/3, right? Katrina.
I'm also half Black, half white. My mom's white, my dad's Black.
Uh-huh. And so and Devin, how about you?
I don't know exact percentages, but I'm Black, white, Puerto Rican, and Native American. Like
And
my mom is like white, Black, and Native American, and my dad is just Black and Puerto Rican.
Uh-huh. And you're Black and Puerto Rican. He doesn't speak Spanish, is that right? Or he does speak Spanish?
He doesn't speak it. My grandparents never taught it. Well, my
Yeah.
great-grandparents never taught it.
Damn, man. All right. Nadia, how about you? What's your background?
My dad is Puerto Rican and my mom is Irish.
Your mom is Irish and your dad's Puerto Rican. And what does your mom, you look at, you have Irish eyes, by the way. So do you have your mom's eyes?
Yeah,
You look like it. And you, all right. And where are you from? Where did your parents meet?
They met in New York. My dad moved to like here from Puerto Rico when they were in like middle school.
Uh-huh. Okay. And wait, Eden, how about you?
I'm Indian and Black. My dad's Indian and my mom's Black, but they're both Trinidadian. They're just two different races.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So was your dad born in Trinidad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't realize that, like in the Caribbean, especially in Trinidad, a really large Indian community.
Yeah, like that's what confuses people. Like when I tell them Indian, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like Trinidadian. They're like, oh, I thought you said you were Trinidadian. I'm like, I am, but Trinidadian is just a nationality. Like the largest ethnic group in Trinidad and like Guyana, for example, is like the Indian population.
Yep.
So it's like this conception. People think it's like the Black. It's like almost, but it's like not really.
Yeah.
But-
No, definitely. This is what makes all of this so fascinating, right? But there's so many Indians in Trinidad. Wait, and then the final one was Elijah. Okay, so we knew your background, right? White and black. Yeah.
Hey,
Right, so
we
listen.
could have a very quick thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no, or sideways for can be. Is it racist to have a type? We asked this question in the chat, and I wanted to know the people on screen. Is it racist to have a type?
A
Thumbs up,
type?
thumbs down, thumbs sideways.
Wait, a type?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Everybody's saying could be. So, being a type means if you're on like a dating app and you put in your bio like specific people's race, like specific races that you would or would not like to talk to, those types of things.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, listen.
Well, I mean, wait. I feel like I feel like it's like kind of iffy, but it's less iffy if it's like you just tend to go towards people of a certain race than if you're exclusively looking to talk to that gets iffy if you're looking to exclusively talk to people of a certain race. That's weird. That's weird. But if you end up like happening to like a lot of people the same race, it just like happens to be your type. Like someone might have a type like, oh, they like girls that have like curly brown hair or something, like that just like ends up being your type. I feel like that's a little less iffy. But if you're looking to talk to people of a specific race, that's
I have a cousin who's like my cousin is dad. Oh, sorry.
Wait, we'll come back to we have to cut. We're over. But dudes, awesome conversation. Thank all of you for talking, because it's like this is one of those classes where we can really learn. We have to learn. Katrina and I were emailing about this earlier in the semester. It's like this is such a complicated issue. If you don't talk about, we could do a whole semester on this, on multiracial realities. We just barely scratched the surface. So, but we'll find time in different places to come back to it. Thanks you all. Be well, and don't forget the quiz. And Lily and I will get the quiz ready in a hot second. Thanks you all.
Have a good weekend.
Hey, you.
Bye.